Okay, so we're going to go through the MAP grant application process. The first thing that we'll look at is just understanding where we are in the current time frame of MAP grant and what's going to happen next. So I'm going to blow up this little table here that outlines what it's like in the application process during the year. So in March, everyone should have received their letters that indicate the minimum amount for population-based funding that you're eligible for. So that would be a dollar amount that you are guaranteed if everything you followed up for, you would be eligible for that minimum indication that was in that letter. The special project amount, you'll notice, was not listed on that letter. And that's because special project amounts are not able to be allocated until after we receive applications. So March, you got your letters, you know how much your minimum amount approval is for population-based. And then we're here early to mid-April, webinars and support. So getting you set up on how to submit your application for MAP grant for both population-based and special projects. The deadline to submit is April 15th, and it says that right here for both the special projects, my apologies, and population-based funding. Then what happens is after everyone has submitted their applications, people that have not submitted or submitted for less than their minimum amounts, that money is repooled. So that money goes back into the pot and then is reallocated again to membership. And then the total amount, knowing that I have to reallocate for special projects, is shown to me by seeing what applications come in. So in early May, I will send out another letter that outlines what you've been approved for, your new minimum amount for population-based funding. So it's probably going to be a little bit different. It won't be less, it will be more. And then for special projects, I would let you know how much money we're able to allocate per special project. So I can tell you for special projects that each project you apply for is up to $5,000. So we will never give more than $5,000 out for a special project, but you could be approved for multiple special projects. And if you are approved for multiple, then again, if you apply for multiple at that $5,000 cap, I might tell you in a letter this year, you've been approved for all the special projects you've applied for with a payout of $8,000. Now you can use that $8,000 for all of your special projects or for a certain number of them, but you cannot use 50% of that special project funding on more than 50%, my apologies, on one project. So you have to have, if you applied for two, you can't just use $8,000 on one project. You'd have to split that up evenly between the two projects. That will be explained in detail in the letter that you get. But just note, you are not approved for special projects unless you apply for them. So kind of great that creative minds thinking of what you would like to try to apply for a project. That's where a lot of that money can come through for that MAP grant. Then you spend. So you receive your letters, you've applied, you receive your new allocated amounts and your minimums that you've been approved for. Now you have to spend. And with the spending, you need to be responsible to ensure that you keep your receipts, your invoices, your payment records that are eligible submissions that can be used for your follow-up. So I would suggest keeping a folder, making sure you're taking pictures of all the receipts that you're spending in case you lose one or anything like that. And then having a place where you file them into the folders under population-based or special projects. And with that as well, making maybe the categories that you're going to be following up under, which we'll talk about right away, the categories once we look at the application. Then November will come around, you've gotten your follow-up support, you kind of know what you're doing, you have all your receipts. November will come and that's when the follow-ups are due. If that deadline is not feasible, or if you have a special project that's happening after November 1st, you do need to request an extension. It is not assumed. And I suggest that extension comes in sooner than later, just so we can prepare the review of the MAP grant process with enough time to ensure that we can get through yours before our payment deadline. So payments have to be done by December 15th, and those are, this year we had direct deposit. Note for direct deposit is that we cannot direct deposit to individual accounts. It does have to be set up that the account is for the organization or the association. But we can also get checks out there as well. Same thing is that the checks will not be made to an individual. They'll be made out to the the member organization or association that is on the MAP grant. That's just the best practice and kind of a risk management thing that we will have to follow for SAS Sports. So just make note that if you don't have a bank account set up for your soccer club or your futsal club, that you do get that prepped by the time that payment letters are ready. So that's kind of how the MAP grant life cycle works. Now, to access funding, so those applications on this web page here, which is just found at sassoccer.com, underneath the Member Assistance Program grant, so member organizations and the MAP grant right here, it will take you to this page. You'll find a lot of resources, including webinars that, just like this one that we did last year, our grant policy, which is found hyperlinked here, and the MAP grant easy guide. So the MAP grant easy guide, once you click on there, opens up this document that gives you some tips and tools and resources for what you're going to apply for MAP grant. It also goes through some of the details we were just talking about for when you apply, when the follow-up is, and how to set up some best practices to make sure your follow-up is done nice and easy. In here, I've talked about some of those categories. So population-based funding. This category is essentially compiled by how many registrants you have with Saskatchewan Soccer. And then with that percentage of registrants is given a number of what you're paid out for population-based. Under there, you can apply for funding for 4 different categories, which is coaching development, grassroots and recreational, organizational, and referee development. If you're ever unsure where you would apply for something, just feel free to send an email or give me a call and I can give you a hand with which area would be appropriate. For special project funding, this is the one where it's a set amount of dollars that you're given. It has nothing to do with how small or big your organization is. It's just with if you're willing to put in the work to fund a project, you write out what that project is, and then we will approve you or deny you depending on what you're applying for. That you do have to ensure that the project you're applying for fits underneath one of these strategic initiatives. And again, if you are unsure, just send me a write-up of what it is or give me a call and I can help assist you into which one it would fall under. So everyone's game is our EDI strategy. So if you're kind of looking to do something specifically for an underrepresented group of people, or you wanted to do some adaptive programming, build some new partnerships, this would be a good special project category for you. Early sport program development, so kind of extending or expanding your mini programming. Futsal program development, either supplementing or creating from new. Adult soccer program development, referee program development, youth leadership development engagement. Now here you might go referee program development, referee development up here. But this is for a larger scale. If you don't want to use all of your population-based funding for your referee development, say you want to host a couple specific clinics, fund the referees that are signing up for those clinics if they have travel costs to get over there, or if they're doing any advancement training, fitness training, this would be more applicable here for that referee development. Youth leadership development, having a full youth coach clinic, getting someone to come in and talk about, how they become really good soccer leaders in their community, or developing some kind of marketing out to obtaining youth coaches. This would be a good area there. Club licensing participation. So if you need to increase some of your or reach your requirements for your club licensing for your quality soccer provider or any of the higher levels, you can use funding through special projects. And this won't be applicable to anyone on the call, but our new members, when they get access to special project funding, that would be what they select down there. So only if you're a new member in that calendar year does that item apply to you. So in this easy guide, you will see that for population-based projects, there's a whole bunch of examples under each coaching, grassroots and rec, organizational and referee. And then same for special project funding, there's a whole bunch of examples here that we have that you could look for what you could apply for. And we'll talk about ineligible based projects, and those are set, though there is no wiggle room around them. The one difference between population-based and special projects is that general operating costs, such as facility rental costs and referee game fees, are not eligible under population-based funding. Now, if you are hosting a special project, so for example, you wanted to host a girls only camp and you wanted to pay for that facility rental so that the people participating could do so at no charge, that would be an eligible expense under special project funding. Any of your general operating costs, so your league games, tournament expenses, and things like that, would not be deemed applicable under either of these categories. If you are receiving funds to pay for officials, so for any of your league games or tournaments, those are not eligible projects. MAP grant is to ensure that you break even, not to make funds off of. This is a grant application, so we can't have it deemed as that you are essentially double dipping from revenue and then from grant funding to receive back on your expenses. So that's why some of those items are listed on here. And then generic things as in alcoholic beverages, any out of province travel, wages, or anything like that, that's deemed ineligible. And a lot of things that we deem ineligible here would mostly be based on the receipts that are submitted to us. So if you're submitting any type of documentation that doesn't have a date, doesn't have an actual company that you're being invoiced by, or is not meeting any of the minimum criteria that's required for the invoices or receipts, we would deem those as ineligible. So the revenue section, kind of what I was talking about just above there, is that you're not going to gain a profit from the project that you're having. So that's very important to note, that we look at the revenue based on your expenses to ensure that you're breaking even, that you're not obtaining additional profit from grant dollars. So a couple of the MAP grant best practices I was talking about before is once you get your approval letter, setting up a folder and having a place that you can put your receipts and your invoices in based on each of the applications that you've submitted. So that was kind of just a quick overview of the Easy Guide. Next, we'll take a look at the application. So we have two applications, as we said before. Your letter would outline both your population base and your special projects. When you click on those links, and same within your MAP grant letter too, you'd have the direct links. It's going to take you to our submittable screen. Now, if you've never logged in before, it's going to prompt you to create a profile. But I can see with Wendy, Peter, Megan, Amanda, you should all have accounts already because you've renewed your membership or have applied for MAP in the past. So you'd use that same login to access your MAP grant application. So here we're going to take a look at the special project. I will go through the population-based one as well, but we'll just hit up special project first. All of that Easy Guide and our policies are always on the first page here if you would like to reference. It's going to ask you some questions that are required. So that's what these red dots mean, is you have to have that information in order to submit your application. You can start this and save a draft. If I just scroll down here, you can save a draft or submit. If you save a draft, you can simply log back into your account to find your draft to start it up, or delete it if it's something you don't want to do. So right here, this is my account. Under my submissions, I can see my drafts, and here's my member assistance draft that I've created, and I can continue it or delete it. Once you do submit, you could also see what you've submitted underneath my submissions here and see all of your forms. And if I ever talk to you back and forth, you'll have little messages that pop up that say that we've sent you a message based on your application or have reopened it. And you'll go in here to make that edits if I need you to make any changes. Back here. So I'm just going to go down here. This is all just information you'd enter. We're going to ask you some strategic questions. So provide a brief overview of your organization's goal or objective for this funding. So if you're trying to, increase your retention or have new registrants come in, you want to expand your programming, you're looking to educate more coaches or staff, that would be a good place to give us just kind of point form of what you're trying to achieve with access to this funding. For special projects, as I said before, there are certain criteria for you to apply under, and it just talks about them again here. And then it's going to ask you to select which ones you're applying under. So in order to fill in the application, you have to select one of the areas that you're applying under, which will then open up a box for you to give details about what for that project you are looking to do. What I need in here is for you to provide an overview details of what that project's going to entail, an estimate of how much of the expenses are going to be, an estimate of how much the revenue will be for that project. If it is nothing, just simply put a 0. If you leave this blank, because there's a red asterisk here, it won't let you submit it. So you have to put in a 0. Yeah, give me a 0. There we go. And here we'll put $1,000. Best adult program ever. And if I had 2 programs that I wanted to apply for, I would check off the second one, and it would also open up that to ask for the exact same information: details, expense, and revenue. Now, the details need to contain items like what you're going to be purchasing. So we will require new equipment, a field rental, and coach education books. You can go as detailed or as vague as you want, but just note that you are approved on what you request. So if you say to me that you're looking for some whistles and some pens and some coaching bags, and then you end up purchasing balls, pylons, sometimes that can be a little bit of an issue. So just go equipment if you're kind of wanting to get everything. I just need to really look and make sure that it's not ineligible things. So if we're going to here, if I was going to continue adding at the end of the year, we will have a banquet. I would red flag that social events are ineligible. So I'd go, even though you didn't go into detail, I would just say that this item that you've applied for underneath here is ineligible, but all of these here are approved. So what I would usually now tell you to do is go in there and remove it, so I could just approve your entire project, or there would be a note on your account telling you that this sentence here is not approved for your project. So I'm going to turn the referee one off. It's there. And click on submit. Of course, I have nothing in there, which is great. Oop. That should let me submit that now. There we go. And here it's going to say success. You have submitted this, and then you will get an email in your inbox that says you've applied. Good job. Here's a couple dates to look forward. You'll be in contact again in May. And now if I go into here underneath my submissions, I should see what I just applied for right here. There, it's been received. So it hasn't been reviewed yet. Once I start reviewing them, you'll see it change from received to in progress. If I withdraw my application, it will show withdrawn here. If it says approved, it will turn green and say approved. So if you take a look at your last year's ones, you should say approved or closed, depending on where you were. I think I closed them all now that it's done, but this here will give you an update on the status. So now I'm going to just go away from population-based funding and switch over to the, oh, this is special project. I want to go to population-based funding and get out of special project. Here we go. There we are. So it looks a lot, very much the same information that you'd have to enter in here. Adding in my email address. We do require a secondary contact because if anything happens to the primary one and we can't get a hold of them, we still have to ensure that the money gets released to the organization, especially if they complete everything. So we do want to always require a secondary contact. So a lot of the same questions again. Why are we requesting this funding? What's the overview? And our population-based funding has those 4 different criteria, really, that kind of helps support the population that you are giving service to. So what are you going to apply for? you can check off those areas. So here we're going to purchase a new computer. The expected revenue that we'll have, we will receive registration fees. Let's go, we're going to have $600 in registration fees. What are some eligible things to apply for underneath organizational development? And give an overview of what that's going to be. So we want a new computer. And the ramp admin fees. So those ramp fees that you're charged, that $1.50 per registrant account, that's something that's eligible for you to claim underneath MAP grant. So I'm going to put those two in there. And my estimated expenses will be $800. So we'll go, the computer say it's going to be about 500 and my ramp admin fees for the year will be around 3. I don't need to break that down. I just need to know the total of what this project is going to cost me, or this organizational development expenses are going to cost me. So if I wanted to fill out everything else, I just make sure I had all this checked out. But for time's sake, and I think we all kind of got it, it looks exactly the same, asking you what you're going to spend the money on and how much you think you're going to be spending. And then it's going to initially ask you what your revenue is for all of this. So usually for population-based funding is how much do you receive for registrations? Now I do know that each of these items, your expenses are not allocated for a total expense. So I don't know how much you spend on all your field rentals, your referee fees, etc. But we just want to keep in mind that you don't have so much of a super large surplus that these grant dollars aren't needed. It is very rare that I ever see that. So please don't be concerned or think that you have to fib to me or anything like that. It just helps us keep in mind of what we're allocating funds to and how much you're receiving for revenue to support the projects that you're applying for. So I'll submit here. And done. Same thing. I can see my MAP grant underneath my account that I applied for. When the follow-ups are given for me to fill in, so the next form, you'd see this little attachment here that allows you to fill up your follow-up and submit that. There'll be a separate webinar that we host that goes through the follow-up. Today was just going through the overview on how you apply. So I'm going to stop the recording here and we will pause for questions. Just give me one quick second.